our setup. Let's see how this does. So, I'm gonna go to... Yep, this one. It should probably be zoomed out a little bit. No, that might be fine. Okay. Okay, that was fast. Alright, let's go ahead and try this again. Here we go. Bang.
What the heck is up with that? What's up with that? Even you sling you don't use it at all. It's a kid on a flying manhole. I don't care if it's a lad on his magic carpet. Get it.
Ah, there we go.
Like turning on lights in a roach motel. That's my taser punch. Shocking, isn't it?
From the first comic.
Okay, you caught me off guard. I'm new at this, so show me.
I love the banner, the Spider-Man banner.
Not that I have a curfew or anything, but I really gotta wrap this up. Stick around, fellas. You got company.
Bad guys this way. Sounds good to me. See, that's the only difference, is that, well, there's more than one difference, but that's one of them, is that in the comic it took him a few months because he wanted to exercise and build his physical body and all that. And then he became static once he was ready.
Yeah, at least I'm growing mine on purpose.
Just hurry up and give you a little
That
deep
relationship,
breath
on the other hand, is absolutely
Don't forget
perfect.
your job, Kyla.
What would she ever do to you?
What's this? An egg smoothie?
You know that's just the way Mama made him.
Yeah.
I don't recall ever Good looking out, moms.
See, that's another difference there too.
Fluffy egg.
Is that the mom isn't dead in the comic. In fact, she's around more than the dad. However, I do respect the fact that they're having a single dad raise the kids so that it's, so that you don't have the memes anymore. Because it goes against the stereotype of black kids not having a dad. Also, Frida's actually his best friend in the comics.
Man, you sound like a form letter.
Yeah, Rich is part of the group, but he's like on the fringe. He just shows up every so often, and then we find out he's gay. No joke. Like the dude is legitimately gay. This is in the 90s. Like there's a whole 5 comic arc about it.
Looking good.
That voice sounds familiar. So, in the comic,
Face can understand what my fist is saying.
he wasn't that fit. Also, his name was Biz Money B, and he was a lot more of a wigger.
Nah, wait. We were just playing.
And I don't think there's a Wade in the comics. However, Virgil does have a friend named Larry who's a lot more street than he is. And it turns out that Frida's actually dating Larry. I also think Biz Money B was more solo. He was a straight up bully, but I think he was solo.
Can we do this later, fellas? A beatdown just doesn't feel right without lockers and dim school lighting.
Virgil the jokester.
Yeah,
Your way out of this, buddy man.
that's totally true. That's one thing I did like about him. He was sarcastic even when they were trying to threaten him, or even when Biz Money B was threatening him. He was still a smart aleck.
You'll be seeing more of me, Virg. Believe that.
Believe it! Sorry, I couldn't help it. Also, in the comic, Virgil's a lot more geeky
Say, son, where were you this
and
afternoon?
nerdy.
Well,
So, also a little bit of trivia is that Phil Lamar, who voices Virgil, apparently he's a fan of Static in real life, even before the series. And there's a letter from him in Static Rebirth of the Cool, which came out just after this series started.
But keeping Francis off your butt takes too much of my time.
I never asked you to do that, Wade.
That was also the first official time Static Shock was used for the comic strips.
One day he's gonna catch quick. He ain't gonna tangle with this posse.
Why does dude on the left look like somebody from Fat Albert?
Hello?
By the way, all this in the comic, all this stuff happens before he actually comes here. Slight difference from the comic too. So, in the comic, he actually gets the gun, like right after school. And then he's thinking about killing, killing Biz Money B. And then he goes, and Larry tells him where to go. And so he shows up, and nobody sees him, which is why nobody realizes that he's Static. With the cartoon, F-Stop sees him, so I mean he could realize that Virgil is Static. But in the comic, nobody actually sees him there because he's hiding, and he actually decides himself not to shoot him because he thinks that it's wrong. So he's initially tempted, but he doesn't have that traditional superhero parental guilt thing hanging over him when he decides not to do it. So yeah, there's that difference.
This is gonna be fun.
And yeah, Biz Money B is actually there. Yeah, he throws away the gun, and he's already on his way out when they start, and they don't even let anybody know. They just start chucking gas canisters in. Yeah, they just start chucking gas canisters in, and that's how they know the police are there. And then all of a sudden there are choppers everywhere. And it was kind of a weird, dreamish kind of sequence. Yeah, you don't see any of this in the comic. You see none of this in the comic. Except Virgil, like, running off. The police kind of see him, and then he's running off. And he actually floats away. He uses a trash can lid to float away. Also, this whole Static foreshadowing thing never actually happens.
Don't slam the doors.
Yes.
Yeah. This is, by the way, all of this is done on his own in the comic. He doesn't invite anybody with him. He decides himself he's going to become a superhero because he's a superhero geek. Oh my God, Black Vulcan from Super Friends.
Got ourselves a winner. And that's pretty much how it all began.
Except he gets himself into shape. He learns how to use his powers. All this takes about a few months, like 3 months or something. And then he becomes Static. Yeah, none of this happens in the comic. This would be way too obvious.
Not as beautiful as the sight I see, my sugar.
Oh my god! Though in the comic he does use being Static to hit on Frida.
Why isn't it easy for Virgil? See ya!
But only after she finds out. And he's like, she finds out and he's like, oh, so you want some now, huh? She's like, man, I always had a crush on Static. He's like, oh, you want some Static now, huh? She's like, nah, not anymore. Now that I know it's you.
This is gonna be fun.
Also, by the way, Hot Streak, which is his villain name, huh. So, yeah. So that is the first episode of Static Shock. Once again, there are a bunch of differences. First off, his mother is alive. She's very active in his life. She's always telling him to get a job. His dad is alive, and he is not around as much, but that's only because he's working all the time. He works at like a hospital as an orderly or something like that. So it was either an orderly or a nurse, and so he's always working at the hospital. Richie is not his best friend. Richie's on the fringe of the group. Frida's his best friend, and he has a huge crush on Frida. He has a huge crush on Frida, and she knows it, I believe. And the homie dude, the black guy, is actually named Larry in the comic. And yeah, once again at the Big Bang, nobody sees him there except for the police. And by then, like, everything has, like, it's just kind of like this huge fog, and there's a lot of confusion. And he uses a trash can lid to get away, but, like, it's almost, like, dreamily. So he's not even really, like, he wasn't even fully aware of what he was doing. And then, of course, it takes a few months for him to actually, he gets in, like, he starts lifting weights, he starts learning fighting styles, he starts learning how to use his powers. So it takes, like, 3 months, I think, was the minimum that he actually started becoming Static. And so, by the time the comic series starts, he's already been Static for a few weeks, I think. And so people are aware of who he is. Also, he does, like, almost nothing with the high school, because that would be way too obvious. It's like begging for somebody to find out who he is. Also, Hot Streak. So Hot Streak. In the comic, his name is Biz Money B. I forgot his real name. I think Larry calls him by that when he pulls him off of Virgil. And Hot Streak's power is actually that he's a speedster. So what happens is, Hot Streak's power is that he's a speedster. However, the friction of all that builds up, and then he uses that to shoot fireballs and all that stuff, and like all sorts of fire type powers. But he's actually a speedster. So yeah, and then the comic is a 2-parter, and the first comic is a 2-parter, and it begins when Hot Streak actually when when Virgil as Static comes up across Biz Money B, or comes across Hot Streak, he realizes it's Biz Money B, his old bully, and freezes in his tracks. And so that allows Biz Money B to get the drop on him, and he just beats the crap out of him. And so you find out the backstory, because like he gets away and he goes to Frida's house, and Frida tells him, or he tells Frieza. God, why do I keep saying Frieza? He tells Frida his backstory, and that's how you learn the backstory. And so she knows who he is, and Richie doesn't know. Richie's actually, you find out like 15 comics in that he's actually gay. And his name is Rich, not Richie. He has a long ponytail. He does ballet, and a couple other things. And before that, they like kind of goad on him for being they kind of josh around with him about being gay, because he does a lot of stereotypical feminine things like taking ballet. And then you actually find out he is for real gay. And there's a 5-issue arc about Virgil coming to terms with that. Because keep in mind, this is the early 90s, when coming out was still kind of a big thing. Like now, it's not really a thing at all. So yeah. But yeah, it was a cool series. It's a great introduction to the whole world of Static, the Dakotaverse, the Milestone universe. They never actually had any. Oh yeah, his costume was different too. He actually had he wore tights with a lightning bolt over a trench coat, or under a trench coat with a baseball cap. And the baseball cap always changed. It was like Malcolm X one time, and I think it was like the Green Bay Packers another time, and something else. So it changes all the time, but mostly it's an X, I think, for Malcolm X. But yeah, Static is a great series. Phil Lamar, apparently, who does the voice of Static, is apparently a big-time fan of the comic, or the character of Static. And when this series came out, they did a revival series called, or a mini revival series called Static Shock Rebirth of the Cool. And in that comic, I believe it was that one, there's a letter from Phil Lamar talking about how much he loves the character. So, actually really cool. And yeah, so that's all I have to say about this. Also, Shock to Your System, original for the cartoon, never happened in the comic. In the comic, his slogan is actually, if you don't start none, there won't be none. So yeah, if you don't start none, there won't be none. That's his catchphrase. So yeah, and I think he only said it in the first comic. So yeah. So yeah, let me know what you guys thought. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good kind of stuff. It's nice to be back again. I got my whole setup here. This is actually just kind of a test, which is why there was no real opening to this. And seeing how the new setup is I got my new processor. I can do my camera now, do the reactions the way I want to, and it looks like the lighting is working out fine, even though it's like 9:45 at night. So that's good. I'm glad about this. This is working. So yeah, until next time, you guys. Test over, test succeeded, pass with flying colors, and I will see you guys later. Yeah. I totally blanked. Alright, but yeah. Be excellent to one another and party on, dudes.